Welcome everyone to the new JFK show number 269. We've got Otto Skorzeny. It's some research that Larry Rivera has done, and the Nazi connection has really not come up very many times, but come to find out, the Texas All Boys and a few Nazis, which Clay Shaw does come up a little bit later in the show. But let's go ahead and turn it over to Larry, and we'll talk about our new JFK blog entry.
Larry is host.
All right.
Am I? Okay. Where were we? Okay.
Got our hourglass going.
So first of all, we're talking about Otto Skorzeny and Otto Skorzeny, and this guy was a real Rambo, type of guy. He was towards the end there, one of Hitler's top-rated operatives, where he would go and do anything that Hitler would ask him to do, no matter how dangerous. And he built a reputation, such a reputation that even right before the Battle of the Bulge, Dwight Eisenhower had to be, hidden away, so to speak, because they thought that he might have been, the object of some type of kidnap or something like that, because Otto was able to do such surgical operations that, that was a possibility. And especially since he already had the one rescue operation where he went and rescued Benito Mussolini from house detention in a mountain resort, and this was called the Gran Sasso, and that happened on 12 September 1943. And like I said, the Allies were so paranoid that they had to hide good old Eisenhower, thinking that Skorzeny could have kidnapped him, and
yeah. So
that's funny. I know it's funny, but it's
Larry was explaining to me that he actually came down in a glider in a private resort, and then silently, without a shot fired, captured Mussolini and brought him back to Adolf Hitler. So how's that?
He was the Nazi James Bond.
Yeah, actually 12 or 14 gliders. It was a whole, but they did, and they, amazingly enough, they pulled it off, and then
had Dwight Eisenhower over there thinking that Batman's going to swoop down at any minute.
That's right. So obviously
Mike must have been crapping in his pants.
Yeah, this guy was badass in real life, not on the screen.
So there's two books, that have recently been published on Skorzeny, and we're talking about the Gaines, the Skorzeny papers, Ralph Gaines right here, and we've got the Albarelli, also a coup in Dallas, and both of them have different sources, primary source material. And in the case of the Skorzeny papers, Ralph Gaines went and actually obtained at auction in 2011, I think, a tranche of documents, that Skorzeny had left with people whom he knew in Spain, and who eventually were able to take a look at some of the papers, but as the entire thing unfolded, it was actually purchased by this Ralph Gaines, and based on that, he has been looking at everything. A lot of the documents in German, obviously, but the results of his work have brought about, a lot of whispers regarding the JFK assassination. And let's go ahead and read some of this, so our audience can get involved. It's kind of wild and crazy, here.
Who was Otto Skorzeny? The
Yeah,
Skorzeny Papers by Ralph Gannis has been out since 2018. Gannis obtained the nearly 2,000-page Skorzeny document collection at an auction in 2011, working for 7 years on his book. Despite the lack of proper referencing to documents cited by the author, it is a compelling piece of work which allows researchers to peek into the turbulent world of post-World War II Nazi associations, movements, and relocation. It also reveals the extent of the CIA's ultra-secret nexus with Skorzeny. The relationship with Skorzeny, however, pales in comparison with his recruitment by Mossad to set up and take out Nazi rocket scientists who dared work for any of the Arab countries. Netflix also has a new documentary on Skorzeny with tons of new information from the Spanish point of view.
yeah. Actually, what's crazy is he knew all of the scientists, and plus, I don't know if we'll talk about it. He was involved in Paperclip, Operation Paperclip, and relocating a lot of these brilliant minds. Especially at auction, actually, because some went one way, the others went to the other side. So
Now, I might add, as was Clay Shaw, doing the exact same thing this man is doing here, rescuing rocket scientists. It's a well-known fact that he was the one that brought Van Braun back from Germany.
Werner von Braun, he went
Clay
down
Shaw.
on a bicycle, I heard.
Yeah. The only one indicted and brought to trial in the entire JFK assassination.
Skorzeny lived in Spain for 25 years, protected by Spanish dictator Francisco Franco. After slipping through the nets cast to catch Nazis, escaping Germany toward the end of World War II. Skorzeny would eventually be found innocent of any war crimes when a legendary super spy, Yale Thomas, known as the White Rabbit, testified on his behalf. He later worked for several governments and was, in essence, a mercenary who had teams of well-trained operatives who could be deployed anywhere at a moment's notice. He made a fortune when the U.S. recruited him to broker the construction of the U.S. Air Force bases in Spain to use by NATO, all with the approval of the Generalissimo. He was also at the top of the CIA list of potential recruits to join the agency because of his vast knowledge of the German military, scientists, and politicians, one of which he would later set up for assassination by Mossad. Rocket science.
He was a piece of work.
Fascinating, yeah. Rocket scientist Heinz Krug, who was overseeing the Egyptian rocket program, which the Israelis were totally against, was lured by...
Wouldn't they be against it?
Yeah, I would imagine. That's why they took out JFK.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Was lured by Skorzeny to meet in Germany, where he'd disappear and never be heard from again. Netflix. As Gannis points out, Skorzeny was a vital connection rounding up Nazi rocket scientists during Operation Paperclip. So he knew exactly where to find them. Finally, recent revelations by author Gannis indicate that either Skorzeny or members of his network worked as cutouts for the CIA and may have been involved in the JFK hit, where one passage used by the author hits the reader in the face right off the bat with the following ominous message, quote, "Mr. Director, only you can clear Otto Skorzeny of the guilt of being an agent in the Dallas operation with the passive complicity of Alan W. Dulles." Excerpt from a letter by Frenchman Paul Gluck, March 1975. Gannis, Major P, the Skorzeny Papers.
Yeah.
Evidence for the plot to kill JFK.
Right. Otto cara cortada, which means Scarface, Skorzeny.
Yeah, he obviously had a huge flap there.
And you know where that came from? That came from a fencing duel, which at the time, when he was, I think, in the academy, they would do this without any protection. Yeah, any mask or anything. And at the time, if that happened to you, it would be worn as a badge of honor, mind you.
You see that? Yeah, you look really extra badass with a big old scar across your face.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty. Skorzeny became an independent paramilitary advisor to U.S. French intelligence in the early 1950s. The presence of these men in the Skorzeny papers indicates the experience level and lethality of Skorzeny's military network. Ganis also provides compelling circumstantial evidence indicating that Skorzeny's profile regarding his travels and engagement with the CIA point to the possibility who could have been the elusive QJ Win.
In the sense that QJ Win would have been an organization, Jim, not a particular operative or person. Right?
Yeah, Bradley Ayers writes about QJ Win and others too, of course. Ganis writes that Skorzeny had ties at Dallas Oil since 1952 when he negotiated a deal to bring Texas companies to Spain to drill. Consequently, traveled frequently to Dallas and knew all the oil barons and power brokers of Dallas. Ganis continues, quote, Skorzeny's meeting with the Meadows Oil Group in the fall of 1952 had resulted in a long partnership between him and the American General Oil Company that stretched from 1952 until at least 1963, a key date. Clearly, the Texas oil connection, as Skorzeny mentioned above, are extremely important given the profile of its participants and the fact that Skorzeny was connected to CIA cover organizations.
And of course, we are citing Ganis, Ralph Ganis here. And but before Ganis, we had Mae Brussel, okay, who wrote about Skorzeny and talked about Skorzeny in the 60s and 70s, Jim. So,
his commando operation for hire was named International Fascistas. Mae Brussel article, the Nazi connection to the JFK assassination. SS Colonel Skorzeny, the CIA agent, participated in terror campaigns waged by Operation 40 in Guatemala, Brazil, and Argentina. Skorzeny was also in charge of the Paladin mercenaries whose cover, MC Inc., was a Madrid export firm.
Yeah.
The following document, which was released 12/15/2021, has a redaction showing through it. It makes a reference to the Madrid clandestine interrogation center, the same one which was run by Skorzeny, the former Nazi who would later work for the CIA out of Spain, where he established his base in 1951.
So hold on. So far, what do you think about the Skorzeny connection here, Jim and Gary?
Well, I think it's pretty heavy, Gary. It's pretty heavy. I mean, you know, this is troubling. He certainly could have been in the thick of it.
He's certainly a player. He's certainly a player in here.
He's been involved in some of the biggest operations ever, and in America, I'm trying to think about, you know, I mean,
and we're going to show you a document now that it's redacted in non-redacted forms, and why this Madrid interrogation center is so important in this narrative. Go ahead.
This document might be the smoking gun that elevates and connects Skorzeny to the top echelon of the U.S. government, which included both JFK, by connection to his brother, and RFK, as seen in this Operation Mongoose meeting of the special group augmented date 3 May 1962. Noel Twyman wrote the following about the group in his book, Bloody Treason, which I recommend to one and all.
Absolutely. It's a treasure. It's big, but, you know.
That's a hefty piece of work. It's heavy in every sense.
Yeah.
William Harvey took his orders from the special group augmented, which was chaired by General Maxwell Taylor and augmented by Robert Kennedy. The president's father treated Harvey with utter contempt. He browbeat Harvey and his aides relentlessly. And of course, Harvey was in a chain of command as related by E. Howard Hunt.
Yeah, and a huge player in all this CIA thing going on.
Harvey was in charge of assassination worldwide for the CIA.
And not only that, there's so many things about Harvey, and now that are coming out, you know. But go ahead.
Yeah, here's a very nasty piece of work. So just to remind, E. Howard Hunt told his son, St. John, when he thought he was on the verge of death, that the chain of command ran from Lyndon Johnson to Cord Meyer to David Atlee Phillips to William Harvey to David Sanchez Morales. And from him, then, he was basically then in operational control. But we can't leave out George H.W. Bush and Edward Lansdale. The question becomes how Skorzeny fits into this mix.
And exactly, we're going to talk about Lansdale now, because this meeting of 3 May 1962 is the one that brings all this together with their, knowledge of, this Madrid center and, Skorzeny's participation in all this.
Yeah, very interesting. Here we have memorandum for the record. Minutes of the meeting of the special group augmented. Operation Mongoose, Chauncey told me he actually came up with the name Mongoose for the operation. General Taylor, Bobby, Lyndon, Gilpatrick, Decker, Lansdale, Craig, McCone, Harvey.
The cream.
That's
Gang's all here.
That's about as heavy a group as you could have.
That's right.
Number one, General Lansdale gave an interim report on the progress of stepping up recruitment of Cubans into the U.S. Army. He said, the consensus is that there are not more than 1,000 suitable individuals from whom additional recruits could be selected. The Attorney General commented that the president wishes to have, thank you, a large number. General Lansdale said that various alternatives for training of such Cubans are being looked into. It was agreed that such a cadre of Cubans would be an asset to the U.S., which might be used in a number of ways. General Lansdale, supported by General Taylor, pointed out that in this connection, the matter of holding the individuals and giving them useful employment after they are trained is an important and a difficult one.
Here we go.
Mr. Harvey gave a rundown on progress to date with agent teams in the general field of intelligence, including the Oplock Interrogation Center.
Opelika, that's Opelika in Miami.
Opelika, right. Can you read that? Because
yeah,
the
let me get you a little bit closer here, Jim, okay? Because this, okay, Opelika.
Good. I think it's great that we can see through the redactions.
That's the point of the whole. Exactly. Okay, so interrogation.
You may be able to read them easier than I, Larry.
Yeah, and the Madrid clandestine interrogation center. That's the first redaction. He outlined various difficulties encountered and said that 3 agent teams have been infiltrated and that 5 WT, those are wireless transmitters, by the way, that's what the WT stands for, are in place. Approximately 72 actual or potential reporting sources are also in place. And then it goes, a significant development is that Major Duque has refused to allow agents responsive to him to be dispatched on purely intelligence gathering missions. This sort of attitude has been forecast earlier as a possibility, but it's now assumed, I don't think, okay. Then 3, Mr. Harvey, and this, I don't know why they take him out of there, also commented on the 2 attempts made to intrude into Havana TV programs. The group asked that a check be made. But the most important thing here to be looking at is at the top here, the Madrid clandestine interrogation center. And then here at the left, you can see where, whoever was redacting or working on that said excise Madrid only and leave the rest. So
interesting, very interesting.
And then the original of the voila is here. Okay, from new documents. I don't know why we went through all that. When we could have.
Well, why'd they bother to redact if they're gonna? Yeah, it's great. I love it, Larry.
Okay, so and here again, the Madrid clandestine interrogation center, and that is the one run by Skorzeny. So then you can go ahead and continue here.
Yeah, and it's funny how they're trying to intrude into TV programs, and they're not even sure if they're even successful or not. And it didn't seem like they really care, In
those days, it was not easy. Okay, so the reason for the redaction is clear now.
Yes, the Madrid clandestine interrogation center mentioned in these documents appears to provide more circumstantial evidence of William Harvey's role in getting the mechanics in place on 22 November 1963 and by using untraceable assets from overseas provided by Skorzeny. To that effect, his procurement of QJ Win for ZR rifle purposes has been fully documented. Within this possibility, we're left with two operatives who might have been involved. Jean-René Sorte and Jean-Paul Philippe, both of whom were in Dallas.
These are just two possible operatives in, an entire setup, in Dealey Plaza. This does not mean, okay, that these are the only, shooters, but that they could have been part of, a broader, operation, with since we know that in Dealey Plaza there was so many different shooting positions, I don't know, Jim, how many would you say? Yeah, 8. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's entirely feasible that these two, sharpshooters could have been, in
Dallas,
one of the positions. Yeah. And thing is that they were both in Dallas. And there's documentation that proves that they were both in Dallas, and they were deported within hours of the assassination.
I mean, the deportation must have been the escape, right? The escape plan.
Well, what were they doing there?
Remember, Chauncey said, wandering around Dealey Plaza, he saw more mercenaries and hitmen than you find at
exactly.
Fortune convention.
Exactly. That's right.
There's a recently declassified CIA document that informs about the expulsion of Sorte 48 hours after the assassination, after having been in Dallas on 22 November.
That's crazy. John Swetra, also known as Michelle Roux, also known as Michael Mertz, and and it tells us how, go ahead, French hits.
You're doing great.
I'm not saying that this, but the presence of these guys there,
and doesn't make them shooters, but it's sure suspicious.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is absolutely confirmed, Jim. So this hit legal attaché in Paris, and also the oops, I don't know what that says. This man has queried the bureau in New York City concerning subjects stating that he had been expelled from the U.S. at Fort Worth or Dallas 48 hours after the assassination. He was in Fort Worth on the morning of 22 November and in Dallas in the afternoon.
Well, afternoon would have been too late, but
yeah, French believe he was expelled to either Mexico or Canada. In January, he received mail from a dentist, blah, blah, blah. Subject is believed to be identical with a captain who is a deserter from the French army and an activist in the OAS. French are concerned because of de Gaulle's planned visit to Mexico. They would like to know, this guy, was the real deal here. Bureau files are negative and they are checking in Texas and with the INS. They would like a check of our files with indications of what may be passed to the French. Anyway, Jean-René Swetra and
wow.
And then you've got this one. Again, more documents that confirm that he was in Dallas. He was in Fort Worth, November the 22nd. And
he looks a lot like a hitman, Larry.
Well,
my goodness.
And then we've got here what appears to be Skorzeny. And I told some of the people when this first came out, this would have been way too easy, to have a photo of Skorzeny with Cord Meyer and David Atlee Phillips. I mean, it doesn't work like that, Jim, And
you mean they're not that obvious?
Exactly. It doesn't work like that, not in this thing. For him to be in a private, Learjet here, and I think when we talked the other day, I thought because they said Gaines reports that this is David Atlee Phillips here and Cord Meyer sitting right here. Okay. And
Yeah.
at this,
Which is which, Larry?
right here where I have the mouse pointer, Cord
Yeah.
Meyer and David Atlee Phillips. And like I said, it would have been way too easy and convenient. I disagree. Just you don't get layups like this in this business. And
So
but
who's the guy with the cigar?
oh, that's Skorzeny, no doubt about that.
That is Skorzeny?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
talking about.
that's a hell of a photograph, Larry.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like it would have been way too convenient and way too easy.
I don't know, Larry. Sometimes these things happen, I mean, it's just maybe
This is what the way game is.
remarkable coincidence, but that's a hell of a trio. A hell of a trio.
Well,
You remember what? Yeah, you remember when the guy with the cowboy hat looked like the head of the CIA holding Lee Oswald? You remember that?
Sure.
That's
Yeah,
too
sure.
easy. That's too easy. Never gonna be that easy.
okay, well, we went ahead and we looked at, at the man standing up there in the middle, the one in the middle.
I
And
mean, it's David Atlee Phillips.
right, and we went and looked at many photos of Atlee Phillips, and as you can see, this guy wears his wristwatch on the left wrist.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you go and you look at Atlee Phillips, there's just so many pictures of him, and he's wearing it on his right wrist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Way too many to.
So this is probably not Atlee Phillips.
It's romantic. It sounds romantic, yes, but I don't think so. Obviously, we don't have. We have this, top view. But the one sitting down, I thought, hey, this guy looks like Carter. Cliff Carter.
There, you got to flip your hourglass.
LBJ's.
Still got a little bit left.
We all know Cliff Carter, LBJ's henchman.
Oh, you think that could be Cliff Carter?
Well, that's what I thought. But when I did a study of, it was like a dead ringer, Jim. But when I did a study of the ear and the earlobe, nada, zilch, forget it.
Can you see the ear?
Yeah, I went and found. Trust me, I did the research.
They're on it. Huh?
It didn't work out,
Oh,
but that would have been romantic. That would have been, to see Skorzeny flying around with some of LBJ's pals.
Yeah, and Cord Meyer, yeah. Were
So
members of
there's-
the Skorzeny organization involved in the JFK assassination at the execution level? The Skorzeny Papers author,
yeah.
Major Ralph Gannis, certainly is convinced he's found irrefutable evidence of this. How does it fit in the LBJ framework of culpability? Gannis' research linking Skorzeny to Dallas Oil certainly brings him into the LBJ sphere of influence.
True.
Being distinct entities in a universe of possibilities, compartmentalization is key. The use of Skorzeny certainly would have created an effective buffer of plausible deniability. The inclusion of the usual suspects at the scene of the crime was paramount in achieving this.
You just mentioned that a little while ago. All different entities there at Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, Chauncey, yeah. The inclusion of the usual, with Skorzeny being a relatively new player in the kaleidoscope of whodunits out there, it will probably take a while to sort out where he falls in the ranking, determined by how strong the evidence of his involvement may be. Regardless, Gannis has definitely proven his points regarding the Skorzeny organization and its ability and availability to do contract work, let's say wet work for the government.
Yeah, he did, and he did them for the Israelis.
Yeah,
he did not.
He had no political inhibition.
That's right.
The Madrid clandestine interrogation center doc shows this post supports the thesis and throws a veil of dark serendipity. Had this turned out to be the entity that took out the president with his brother Robert, being mentioned in the 3 May 1962 Operation Mongoose memo, along with John McCone, William Harvey, Ed Lansdale, Maxwell Taylor, Roswell Gilpatrick, and the other warmongers who celebrated the day of the JFK assassination as they ushered in the era of the deep state. Serious shit, Larry.
Right here, and here's that again. the non-redacted, and what's like I said, you know, if you have something here, this document that shows that Robert Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy, they don't even, you know, Mr. Kennedy, you know, Robert Kennedy was,
Johnson.
you know, was present, you know, and this whole thing where they're actually mentioning, you know, the people that later on might be involved in taking out John Kennedy, might,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and that this document would, you know, bring all this out, you know, that's what I'm more or less trying to get at.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good,
Awesome.
Larry. That's really good stuff.
It's a big thing coming out now.
Right.
You know, a lot of the people, you know, like we had, and we spoke to Casey Quinlan, who's done a lot of research on this, and Dr. David Denton, who's gonna, you know, also be presenting something about Skorzeny, I believe, and because of these two new books that have come out, the Skorzeny Papers and A Coup in Dallas, you know, and both of them, you know, they go about it from different perspectives. I didn't mention on the Albarelli book, he uses a diary from a guy, what was in, oh my God, Lafitte, okay? This fellow by the name is Lafitte, and he has this diary, and he was involved in this whole Skorzeny thing, you know, from a different perspective. So a lot of the information that he has confirms what Gaines writes in the Skorzeny Papers. Okay, so that's why, you know, they're both working from different perspectives here, and that's what's coming out now, believe it or not. So we'll see where it leads. And
Larry, I think this is quite a significant find. I'm very struck and impressed.
yeah, and if and the thing about it is the connection to the Texas oil, Jim. Yeah, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, just
You
like
know.
Jim Mars said, Dallas was a different place. They only had one nightclub.
And by the
everyone knew
way,
each other.
and by the way, that I forgot to tell you guys, and we didn't even talk about this. Skorzeny had deep connections to Harold Bird, the owner of the TSBD, and Skorzeny used to broker safaris to Africa. And where was Harold Bird on the weekend of the assassination?
On a trip on a safari in Africa.
Safari organized by Otto Skorzeny.
No,
No shit.
it's starting to smell around here.
This is a pretty tight circle, Larry.
Yeah, like I said,
You say?
Jim Mars brought that up quite often, how small and what a different town it was. I mean, there were no huge buildings and stuff
You
like
don't know what Harold Bird did about the window at the TSBD, right? You know what he did with that window, right, Jim?
Yeah. He took that and put it in his
his house. Yeah.
So
So you know,
sixth floor museum is a mock-up.
It's a replacement.
so you know that there's no
But
way.
remember, I mean, nobody actually shot out that window, so it's really.
Yeah,
But it's a nice token of the fraud, you know, of faking this,
yeah.
framing the patsy.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that's what you know, our audience should you know, take this thing about Otto Skorzeny is serious, I think, and
Yeah.
who knows?
Certainly
That's where
ready
it's
for-
going to lead, you know.
Right, for a lot of research, for sure. So,
You
all right,
know?
you want to go on to the next one, or you want to call it a show?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. Any final words there before we go on JFK 269?
I think this is a very, very significant development, and Larry keeps knocking them out of the park. Love it.
Another home run, no doubt about it, Larry. All right, we're going to see you guys next week with JFK number 270. This has been number 269. We'll see you next
All
week.
right. There you go.